There are a couple of topics that just kind of don't seem to fit cleanly with a lot of other things you do in PowerPoint, but they are still very important. One is, how do we move between slides? Animations are one thing, but what about from one slide to the other? Second thing is, what do we do if we have slides that we may or may not want to show? How do we control what we see and when we see it? So we need to talk about hiding slides as well as custom shows. They're really nice features that can add a little bit more flexibility to what you do with your file. Topic number 1 is transitions. Animations are things that happen on the slide. How do the individual elements appear on the slide? Transitions are, how do we move from slide 1 to slide 2 to slide 3? Now, you certainly could just have it pop up on the screen, but it's a little bit more elegant to have it do something like a blinds or a checkerboard or one of those other nice features that we can add in. So how do we add transitions? Well, you can do this in a variety of places, and it really doesn't matter. You can do it on a full slide as well. But I've gone to Slide Sorter View because I want to apply these all at the same time to multiple slides. Imagine that we have a 60-slide show, and I need to make a transition between each and every one of them. I certainly do not want to do that one at a time. So in order to do this most effectively, I'm going to press Control-A on my keyboard, which selects all of the slides. You also could do Click-Shift-Click or hold your Control key and select a group of slides and apply them to those selected slides, but all at the same time. Now, what I recommend is that you'd really try to have 2 transitions in a presentation. That's a general rule, but in this one, which is fairly short, I want to have 2. One would happen between most of the slides. The second transition would happen when you're making a major topic change, say between chapters, or if you're doing an HR presentation, when you go from health benefits to leave, those types of things. And if you think about what you see on TV or at the movies, how do you know when you're going from a major scene change? In other words, we just had an interaction between the 2 people on screen, it's the end of that, and now we're going to go to 2 days later. The usual transition is something like fade through black. That's a major change. So let's start with the minor change, and we're going to use the ribbon to do this. By coming up to the Animations tab, there's a big center section called Transitions. And you can pause over these to see how these work. Now, it's a little bit difficult because we're looking at thumbnails here, but it does show a demonstration, if you will. Like all of our other galleries, we can also click on the drop-down and see all of the different transitions. They're categorized into fades and dissolves, wipes, and you can kind of move across these and also get the names. Like this one has a wipe right as opposed to a wipe up. You also have something that will do a wedge. Really, they do get very complicated. My feeling is that you should try to stay simple. Simple is always better with these. Use some of your animation to add a little punch to it, but be careful that you don't have too many transitions and they become a distraction. For our purposes, I'm going to use a simple dissolve. By doing that, you can see it's now going through and applying that to each one of my slides. If you look carefully, you'll also see that along the lower left corner of each slide, there's now a little star. That lets me know that a transition has been applied to this particular slide. If I then wanted to do transitions for, say, different sections, I could click off, and I could select a particular slide. And notice that the title of the group on the ribbon is Transition to this slide. People are always confused about when I apply a transition, is that coming into the selected slide or going from the selected slide? It's a transition to. So I could say for my first slide, I want to go ahead and do a dissolve through black. Now, until you get these icons figured out, you're probably going to have to look at them a little bit. But when I pause over the one that I'm seeing in my ribbon, it's actually cut through black, which is not quite the same. So I'm going to expand it, and I'm going to look at the gallery where I can see that we have a fade through black, which is just a little bit better, I think. Just like animations, you also can change the speed, and I like to move it from fast, usually down to at least medium, if not slow. If you've selected a transition without selecting all of your slides first, you do have an Apply to All option as well. I'm just in the habit of always selecting what I want before I actually apply it. So now we have the movement between slides selected. But what happens if I don't want to see all of the slides? I hate to see people who go, you know what, I'm actually doing this for 2 different purposes. One is for our internal staff and the other is out for a public presentation. So I'm thinking that slide 2, the benefits, and slide 7, which is talking about types of visual content, Those really aren't important for what I'm doing, and I certainly don't want my audience to know techniques to engage them, so I don't like 11 as well. They will usually select these and then go back and actually delete them. Well, that's fine, except then you don't have them and you have to recreate them when you want to do the other version. Alternately, they'll stick them all at the end of the presentation, and then when they want to use them, they'll have to move them back. I think you can see that my point here is this is all too difficult. So let me make sure that I have all of these selected correctly. I want 11, 7, and 2. I do not want slide number 1. And what I want to do is actually use a feature called hide. They're part of my presentation, but for the moment, I don't want to see them. I also don't want to just go out and delete them though. So I'll select, I can right-click, and I can choose Hide Slide at the bottom. If you look at the slide number indicator, you'll see that it has a box with a little slash through it. This lets you know that it's hidden. During a presentation, if you wanted to show a hidden slide, there are keys on the keyboard that you can use, and that's kind of so you can have information you don't want to talk about, but if somebody asks you a specific question, you do have material to show. Well, when you talk about not wanting to show the same content to multiple people, but you don't want to continue to delete and then have to recreate or even have completely separate files, what you're really talking about needing to do is to create a custom show. We can do that again through PowerPoint, where we can designate out of all of our collection of slides which ones we want to show in particular situations. In order to see this, we need to choose the Slideshow tab, and we need to click Custom Slideshow. This brings up a dialog box. Let me go ahead and move that up. And right now it's not very interesting because we don't have any custom shows defined. So I will click New, and I will create a name for my show, and maybe I'll call this Public. Then I need to add the specific slides that I need, and all of my slides are listed here. If you look carefully, you can see that the title is there, and if it's a hidden slide, it has parentheses around it. I can use any one of my normal selection techniques, so I'm going to choose, of course, my title slide, the slides with all of my pictures on it. I don't want to talk about visual content. I do want to talk about our services and the chart that shows how effective our services are. Then I'll click on Add, and you can see that they are now 1 through 7, so they have been renumbered, and only these slides will be included in my custom show. Then all I have to do is say OK, and that's been saved. I can create multiple custom shows, so I could have one for public, one for private. In my business, I typically have things for, let's say, PowerPoint. One is called full day and one is called half day. So if I have to do a half day class, I'm not going to show as many detailed slides as I would for a full day class. I think you get the idea. Point is that all of these things that you customize, and in this case you can customize without having separate files or without having to hide, remove, and regenerate slides. There are always many ways to do things, and none of them are necessarily right and wrong, but I'm trying to nudge you in the direction of being efficient with your time. It also gets very frustrating having to redo things. So first of all, we add transitions so your viewers don't get frustrated. They have nice little transitions and kind of a visual clue of, oh, we're changing topics because I saw a fade through black. Working with hiding slides and customizing shows is more about you. How do I show exactly what I want to show, when I want to show it, and how do I keep a single file without having to have multiple files to manage? All of these tools are at your fingertips, and make sure you make it part of your preparation process.